of the things, okay, so one of the things that we have been covering for the last couple of sessions is about leader, and I keep saying, oh, when we get to the application, I'll explain that more. So what the plan is today is I will just take a brief run through of what we've been going over before in the webinars, and also the actual application form. So what I've done is pulled a lot of the questions out from the application form and from the expression of interest to give you an idea of how you should be approaching the answers to those. So I'm just going to do that in a very sort of broad general view, and then I'm going to open it up for discussion. I'm going to let Johnny speak on just what the wheel offer, and also Niall speak in terms of what it's like to come from one of the local development companies and how they see applications coming in, and how to approach your application as well. And then we're just going to do an open discussion between the three of us and you. Will answer whatever we can on whatever comes up. I will moderate that discussion, and I'll keep an eye on the chat. So if you want to put your question in, you can either type it in, I'll ask, or if you just want to put your hand up, and I'll be the one keeping an eye on that there. But I'll let you know at the end of this when everybody else speaks. We'll open up for questions. So I'll not be taking questions during the speaker. At this stage, I'm sure you must be sick of looking at me, so I'll just put it on to. But I love these sessions. I have actually thoroughly enjoyed them. I've learned a great deal about what's happening around the country, and even those of you who come back to me with little queries and questions. So we look at the recap of 1 and 2. We'll look at your themes. We look at stage 1, the expression of interest, and then stage 2, your application form, and then we'll go into the question and answer and our facilitated discussion as well. So I can't stress this enough. Always remember the 7 principles of leader. And you will notice this in your questions, how they always refer back to these. So look at your themes, your cooperation, have you any cross-cutting themes, partners, who you're working with, how it fits in with your local action group's local strategy, who is the wider community groups and community participants who are involved, what is so innovative about your project, and what are your networks. So these are the principles we need to sort of always keep in. So as you know, in webinar 1, we did how to develop a project plan, how to work in partnership with others, how to go about that, how do we communicate with our partners, and also about financial planning, looking at the funding that's there for match funding, as well as your what's available within Leader. So we looked at the different themes at the last session, and we looked at economic development, enterprise development, and job creation, and what sort of projects they would be encouraging and would be involved in. If I remember rightly, 3/4 of you all last time round were involved in social exclusion, that's so bad, slip of the tongue there, social inclusion projects, and that's looking at basic services and rural youth. We're also looking at rural environment for theme 3. So what is the application process again? We look at the expression of interest and then your full application. So remember your 7 principles of leader. So on the very first one, you will have your expression of interest, and your expression of interest is usually downloadable at this moment in time from all of your local action groups websites. So if you look them up. Now that will look for very broad information, but this is what gets you through the first stage and gets you through to the application stage. So you need to look at just the details about who's applying, what's it about, what's the address, VAT numbers, all of those types of things. What's your estimated cost? Is it actually being sought for? What is the amount of grant you're seeking? And also look at then what is the brief description of your project, and look at your principles. How is this innovative? Who are you getting involved? What is the target group that you are addressing? Is it for the youth? Is it for those with additional needs? Is it for mental health, for exclusion, or is it a tourism project? So you need to look at, or is it a job creation project? So you need to look at that, and you need to give a brief description of what your project entails. Now, this will be assessed by your LAG, usually just by your local development company, who will say, yes, this is definitely something that would fit within our leader strategy, and would you submit an application form? So the application form is usually what puts people off. and I hope I'm not annoying Niall by saying that, but it has come back to us. A lot of people just get intimidated by this form and how much information is required. But let's just break it down. So you've got the first one. They'll ask you what's your qualifications, training and skills to deliver this project, what experience you've had, what qualifications you have, what management, financial experience, all of that. Now, if you are a voluntary group, you have gained a lot of skills just by running that voluntary group and even running your own business or jobs at the same time. So you need to show that you have the capacity to do this, okay? Now, if you do need any training and skills to help deliver your project, put that across, because your local development company does a lot of work on raising the capacity of you as an organization. The Wheel does a lot of work to raise the capacity of you as a voluntary organization. So look at what your qualifications, your training and the skills that you already have, and then look at what maybe you might need. And then you can sort of access those. Why I'm raising these points now is it would be fantastic to say when you're putting in your application that you have all this capacity, right? That you are able to manage the finances, the project management, and if it's a large build project, the whole building and project management of a build or capital project. There is no point in saying that you are going to run a community centre by volunteers when you don't really have the skills base within your team to be there all the time, to open the doors, close the doors, do health and safety, do child protection, do all of those types of work that's going to have to be done. So these are the types of things that you can look for and are available through other sources. So have a look at them. And this is all about being ready again. So you will go on to what type of assistance do you need? And this is where you will speak to your project officer, your development officer from your local development company. Is it a large scale infrastructure project for a community group? Is it for capital? Is it marketing, analysis and development? That's usually the feasibility study, where a lot of people have been asking us about a feasibility study, especially in the second webinar. A lot of people were saying about how it's great that there is funding in the transitional period for feasibility studies, up to 90%. So if you are thinking of a large scale project and you want to get a feasibility study carried out on that basis, or a marketing strategy carried out on that basis, then this is your opportunity, which then can fund it in the next round of later. Your project description. This is the main activities. What does it do? Who does it work for? And who is involved? So take, for example, a lot of people came back the last time asking about sports clubs. So if you're a sports club, it can be very difficult to apply, because you have to show that you are part of a community. It's not for you as just your individual sport. So who are your partners? Who is all going to get involved in this? Who has been involved in the development of this? This could be a matter of putting together some community consultation exercises. Who have you talked to? This communication. This is your opportunity to show all the work that you are doing. If you are a Tidy Towns and you're planning in village enhancement or some sort of environmental scheme like that, who have you involved? Have you involved the local residents groups, the Men's Shed, the local scouts, whoever? So who are you involved with? What's it going to do? So this is the core theme of your project and what you want to deliver. Now you're looking at basic infrastructure. And this is where a lot of people were applying for the basic infrastructure. And will this actually improve the basic infrastructure? And if so, what is the population? Now, that is not only your target group, that is also your numbers. So look at who's there and who is involved and what is the basic services that you are providing. Next question comes back to innovation. What is so different about this? Why should your area need this? Why has it not been done before? Is this because of new developments in your area? It could be, don't forget, we're coming out of a pandemic. Is this some new emerging issues that you want to address? Should it be isolation, working from home, anxiety, mental health, all of those things? So what is innovative? How is this going to help your local community and stimulate your local community? So what is the need of this project and how will it be met? It is all fantastic to say, and I know even with the departmental rep that was on with us the last time, we can all have individual projects, but we do need to show much more partnership working and what is the need and requirement to meet this. So should we have to share social services? Should we have to share basic services, environmental schemes, walkways, rural tourism, um, job creation? Every parish cannot have its own. There isn't the finances there. So we're trying to show how people will work together and what is the impacts. And how does this is where it's cross-cutting themes, improve your environment, your culture, your heritage, your community. So look at all the different aspects of how your project will impact the area. Now I'll close your ears probably this one. If your project does not get a grant, it can't go ahead. Always say it can't go ahead, to be honest with you, because realistically, if you can fund this project, you should not be receiving leader funding. So you need to do like sort of an options appraisal and show this, and that's why it's saying you provide a rationale, a reason for your choice. However, if you had all this money in the bank, you could go ahead without asking for funding. So why should you get the money over somebody who cannot get the money? So I don't know if any of you followed Northern Ireland sort of news, but it came out recently that a very large golf club up here received funding through the Sports Sustainability Fund, when realistically their profit level and their reserves was more than enough to cover what was given to them. So there's questions being asked about why they got it. So this is why we're just saying, you need to prove why you deserve this money more than somebody else. And should it be that it won't go ahead unless you receive leader funding? But you need to prove this. It's not just as a matter of saying, oh no, it can't go ahead, but why can't it go ahead? We don't have the cash reserves. This is such an innovative project. It doesn't fit within other funding streams. We are trying something totally different. So we're doing this. We are working in partnership with another community group. Therefore, we fall outside other funding guidelines. Could be that there is no other funding available for this type of work. Excuse me. I think I mentioned the last time, I know I did mention an area called displacement. And this is the whole point of, is this investment with yourself going to actually impact some other project, facility, or business in the local area? So you're going to have to do a bit of research, and it is a bit of market research. So if you are a jobs club, youth project. So you're doing a youth project, okay? And you're going to run a youth cafe on a Tuesday and Thursday night, or it's a drop-in centre, okay? Is there another youth facility in the local area that you are kind of trying to steal the kids from? And saying, oh, but there's more than enough for all of us together. You need to say that, this facility cannot meet the need, and that is why we are there to complement them and add value. We are working with them. We're not setting up in competition. So that is exactly what it is. We just the fund wants to show how you're working in partnership with others and working on the networks with others, and that this funding is not going to displace another. If you are a rural tourism project, and a lot of heritage centres would be put under that sort of label, your heritage centre, you are different because you are addressing a certain aspect of your heritage. You're involved with the local heritage sectors, networks, tourism groups, whatever it should be. So you are working together, and that's how it is, showing this partnership, that you're not in competition, that you are adding value and complementing those. And that's the key buzzwords about adding value and complementing others. Now, marketing and promotion, and that's about everything that you're going to do. Should it be your basic services to make sure you get people to come in and use? You could have an amazing facility, an amazing service that's being offered there, but nobody knows about it. So how are you going to let people know that this is happening? Environmental and climate change impacts. This is going to be asked in every funding application now, regardless of what type of funding it is. What is the impacts, the environmental impacts? And this is something that every every project will have to take consideration of, and it's about addressing sustainability issues. And this is where we come down just to nuts and bolts. So your timeline, when do you want to start? When do you want to finish? How long is it going to take? Now, if it's a service provision, therefore you'll be starting just on that. If it's a build, it's a different sort of idea. So look at this. If it's an environmental improvement project, be realistic on your duration of your project, because on the basis of your application, you're going to get what's known as called a LOO. I don't know if they do it down here, but your letter of offer. On your letter of offer, you're going to be given timeline on delivering your project. So you need to have a start, a finish, and your duration. Now, this can all be renegotiated, but it's not going to be negotiated completely different, because there is time scales to all this project. And don't forget, all of the transitional funding needs to be spent and accounted for by December 23. So there's no point in saying that this, if you're applying for transitional funding now, that it's going to last into 24. You can't do that. It has to be done now. So that's why be realistic. Cash flow. This is always going to be an issue. You're going to be claiming back. So it's retrospective. You're claiming back what money you've spent out. So how is your cash flow going to be able to deal with this? Will you need phased payments to keep this going? And how will you look at the impact? Now, there's a ticks box exercise that has to be done with this here, and it's basically it's on heritage and what sort of impact your project may have, and that would be a lot to do with tourism and environmental schemes. This is where LEADER is different to other fundings, in particular like sports capital or community enhancement program or anything like that there that you may be applying for. You need to have your planning permission for this. And even if you state, I don't need planning permission, you need to have a letter from your local authority to prove that you don't need your planning permission. So there is no point in saying, I don't need planning permission. You will need to prove that. And you need to apply for your planning. So you need to get your drawings done. You need to get all of that. This is where I'm saying the funding is available now for analysis and development. So if you are planning a large scale project, I would advise maybe you apply for things like that now at this time to develop your plans, and then you're ready for the next round of LEADER funding. Your title to your ground that you're on, and this will have to be proved. This is the same for every application. If I am correct in saying the standard's always 15 years. I don't think it's as high for the LEADER. If I'm correct, it's usually 7 years, but its standard is 15 years of a lease. If it is second-hand equipment that you're purchasing, that needs to be valued by an independent evaluation that it is worth the money that you're actually going to be purchasing it for. You need to go into like job creation. So if you are going for any of the enterprise or anything like that, you need to be going how you're going to be creating and sustaining jobs. Who is currently employed in your facility? What will the impact be on sustaining that employment? How will it help create jobs? And what type of jobs? Is it low-skilled jobs? Is it high-skilled jobs? Is it professional services? Is it manufacturing? Is it the service industry? What type of jobs are you creating? So there isn't always looking at what is being created there. Okay, I have talked enough. I am going to hand over to Johnny, if that's okay.
Okay. Thanks, Tricia, and hello everyone. And yeah, so first of all, I introduced myself. Johnny Sheehan is my name, and I'm the Regional and Member Engagement Manager in The Wheel. And The Wheel is a partner in the rollout of Ireland's national rural network. And every country that has a rural development program, for every rural development program you must have a national rural network to support and to communicate effectively the benefits and the opportunities within the rural development program. In a way, we're lucky in Ireland. We've one rural development program, so it makes it less complicated. So I guess just to tell you a bit about the National Rural Network. So I know Tricia has actually flagged it in the previous two sessions, but it's a member network for people living and working in rural communities, farmers, rural farm families, rural enterprises, community groups, a wide variety of different stakeholders in rural communities. And so it's a membership network. It's free to join. You just sign up on the website, and we send you a monthly newsletter. So we'd be certainly delighted if any of you were interested in who aren't already in signing up to that. But essentially, I suppose the key function of the National Rural Network is to communicate good practice across all the areas of the Ireland's Rural Development Programme, including LEADER. And that's really what I wanted to focus on for you today, because I think Tricia has laid out very clearly, it is not a very simple, easy process. There is a lot of work involved in applying for LEADER funding, but many organizations and groups across the country have already successfully applied for LEADER funding. And what we're trying to do is to show, what it is they did, where they did it, what the lessons they learned from it, and so on, that they want to share with other people. And so on our website, nationalruralnetwork.ie, I would strongly advise everybody to have a look at so there are storyboards across the different LEADER themes. So you will find there short case studies of examples of projects that were funded under each of the themes, and then they link to longer case studies, so much longer case studies that go in depth into the thinking, the purpose of the project, the what actually took place, and what the lessons learned from it were. And so, we talk about, one of the questions is it innovative, and what does that mean? So at least looking at, well, what did innovation mean for these various different groups that have successfully applied for LEADER funding? And it might be that actually, as Trish said, what you're thinking of doing has been done before, but has it been done in your area before? Has it been done in your area? And is it meeting a need in your area? And are you doing something unique because you're doing it there, or whatever? So so if you go to the nationalruralnetwork.ie, I'm very handily on the front page to celebrate the 30th anniversary of LEADER, there is a list of all the main kind of highlights of the different case studies, videos, and so on. So that's in the first place. Do have a look at those case studies, because they actually provide a wealth of information, and they also provide you with, because there's nothing to stop you contacting some of the projects that have successfully applied for LEADER and just picking their brains yourselves if they're doing something that you're thinking of doing, or maybe it's another LEADER project in your area and you want to get their advice advice about what they did. So that's the first place. What I would say is that the NRN recognises the tremendous work that's done by Avondhu Blackwater Partnership and all the other implementing partners around the country in all the different lag areas to support LEADER projects. And for that technical advice around accessing LEADER funding, do go to your local implementing partner for your area. And I know Trish has already shared this with you, but what I was going to say is that we've developed an interactive map, and I don't know, I hope all of you have had a chance to look at that, of who the implementing partners, because that's being kept up to date all the time, the contact details on that, to identify and to talk to your local implementing partner. So in terms of video, obviously all of you come from different backgrounds, have different kind of ideas in terms of what you would like to get LEADER funding. I just was looking at the storyboards for the LEADER on nationalruralnetwork.ie, And there was a couple of just I thought really interesting, innovative projects that got leader funding. For example, in the Midlands, an instrumental outreach program that basically used leader funding to purchase musical equipment, which could be used to teach, to teach young people, to get them interested in accessing and music and culture and so on, through provision of musical instruments. So again, really interesting, innovative project. Another one was in terms of Connemara Community Radio and making their service disability friendly through purchase of relevant equipment, so that people with disabilities could make radio programs. So there's tremendous, just interesting, innovative ideas. So Tricia is sharing here now on the NRN website the range of things available, including the interactive map, which highlights, as you say, if you click on Westmeath, it highlights who the LAG contacts and the implementing partner contacts in every area of the country. So again, that's something which is just, the idea is that you will, as Tricia has pointed out, there are quite a number of sections in the website, and it is, in the application for leader funding. And so having these shortcuts that you can use to actually help you doing your, you'd still have to do your research, but helping you do your research through what is available. So Tricia, maybe we would bring in Niall now, and then I can come back and talk a bit more after. Is that okay?
Certainly. Perfect.
Thanks.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Patricia. Good morning, everyone. My name is Niall Walsh. I'm a development officer with Avondhu Blackwater Partnership here in County Cork. I haven't prepared much, but I'll give a bit of a spiel and we'll see how we get on. So we're a local development company, and Johnny is perfectly right to call us implementing partner in the case of leader, but I think it's quite a technical word, and we're far more than that, I suppose. And I'm not everyone's friendly development officer. We're not even the only local development company in Cork. So we work very closely with our colleagues in IRD and Ballyhowra and CCAD and Cornailon here in County Cork. And I think the key piece that I would let anyone take from this is to engage with your development officer and engage with your local development company. And that might be across the range of programs. So that can include our social inclusion programs, our TUS, our RSS, our CSP programs, and there's many more that the local development companies deliver and support people. So I suppose it's not just a case of turning up and meeting you for the first time. Most of the communities and voluntary organizations we would deal with arrive from a long history of engagement with their local development company or their leader partnership. And I think Patricia's right that there's lots to consider in the application form, and it's really important to approach that well and to do a good job. And I think your development officer will take you through that step by step. We're often seen in normal circumstances in community centres at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the evening, taking people through word for word and explaining to them, not to be challenged by the word innovation. Everything is relative to your locality, your community, the infrastructure you have there, the partnerships you've developed. So, none of this is insurmountable. I'd be wrong to tell you it's not bureaucratic or it's not time consuming. It is. And I would encourage, every group to develop a strategic plan. I would also encourage, project officers within your chairperson, your secretary, your treasurer, maybe a project officer and a compliance officer. So when you're looking for planning documents or title documents or section 5s, or who deals with that, who has the tax clearance cert, who has the insurance details, who's in charge of procurement. So, take your procurement. If it's under 50,000, it's seeking quotations. That's fairly straightforward. But then if you're going to public procurement for a capital project, do you have the skills internally in, building relationships with a QS or even a solicitor, or an engineer are really important things. You know, if you can have those people within your community and voluntary group, it's, you know, it's such a help, and Patricia, right again, in terms of feasibility, you know, now is a good opportunity. The leader transitional program is not a fully fledged leader program, and you know, funding is not, you know, it's not falling from the sky. So maybe it is a good opportunity to get involved in a feasibility study and to get those pieces of work done and get the right expertise in. You know, just in terms of you know, your planning. So if you have a 5-year plan in your community organization, then you can select and choose projects as they come along. So leader is cyclical by its nature. So we're lucky to have a transitional program this time around. Generally, there's a waiting game. So, you know, you need to be building to the next leader program and identifying the projects that are useful for it. You need to be considering your matching funds and your co-financing. Is there local authority funding that you can access? Is there sports capital that can support that? So identify the kind of funding that can be matched with leader, and identify your own resources. So, you know, at a minimum, you'll have to have 5% of the capital cost. You know, that's unusual, rarely comes down to that little. You need to be aware of the different stages. So when you meet your development officer, consider the processes and the time frame. So what do we need at application stage? What are each of the documents that I require? Planning, title, lease. So lease in the Irish, in the context here, is a minimum of 5 years from your final claim. So what's required to get that in place? Have you got that lease? Have you got your ownership documents? Do you have planning permission? So again, there are two real things you need to confirm. You don't require planning with a Section 5 declaration from your local authority, or you need planning permission. So that's not something that's going to happen overnight. You need to be aware of the various things you'll require: your tax clearance, your procurement. So if it is e-tenders, who's going to manage that process and who's going to deliver for you on that? And that again takes time. Once you've gone past application, you'll go through our evaluation committees, and then hopefully onto the lag where you're approved. At that stage, then you need to be considering you're getting a letter of offer. What do I need to get that over the line? You know, you'll need to consider your bridging finance. Has someone engaged with Clancrido or Social Finance Ireland to get you over the line? Even though you will have phase payments as an option, you do need to have robust finances in place. So then delivery, I suppose you have to deliver your project, and you then again have to be aware and you know, at the earliest engagement with your development officer, you need to be considering, you know, I've completed the project. What do I need to process a claim? My invoices, my receipts, tax compliance, insurances, you know, all of these things that will be required, engineers report. So, and your development officer will take you through that in a very clear and you know, a way where you have step by step, you know what you require, but don't let it be a surprise. Don't come to the end and say, oh, I need an engineer's report. You know, be really clear, and that's where a good, robust group behind that. So we very rarely see one individual lead a project. You know, I would really be looking to identify roles and responsibilities for everybody and ensure that they can all support in that process. So it is detailed, it is tricky, it is time consuming, but it is very well worthwhile. And as Johnny says, there are projects everywhere across the country that are absolutely fantastic in delivering for their local communities, be it outdoor recreation, playgrounds, halls, training, capacity building, feasibility studies. Are, you know, innumerable projects that Leader has funded over the last 30 years. So yeah, I suppose, you know, identify your local development company, talk to your development officer, have a conversation, get to know the local development strategy, get to know the budget, get to know the timelines for lag meetings and so on, and then I think pursue it, and you know, it can and will work out, you know, and it is an excellent fund, and it's, you know, something that you could sit here and say, well, it's, you know, it's, you can't do it, or I can't get this, I can't that. Everything is possible, and everything can be done, and every project can be achieved. One community centre in Cork in South Cork, and I met them, I'd say, in my first or second year working with Avondhu Blackwater Partnership, and through no fault of ours or theirs, they made their final claim on Leader in March of this year, and they've delivered a brand new state-of-the-art community centre. So it can take time, but it's really is worth pursuing, and it's worth it for your community, and it's worth it for your organisation. Anyway,
It's
I'll leave it at that.
a great feeling to have actually this webinar series come full circle, because now you're really reiterating all the points that we started on day one with this. It's about being proactive and being ready. I think this transitional funding is a perfect opportunity for you as an organisation to get yourself ready. The funding is a lot more limited. So there's not the big money that would be available for the larger projects because it is only a transitional, but this is the chance to get ready. And don't forget, when we started in day one, it was about getting that library or that database of documents all together. Have you got your title documents? How long have you got left on that lease? Because coming from somebody who's done sports capital, LSSIF, and all the different leader funding out there, leases is always the toughest thing to get sorted, and partnership agreements. So if you are having to go into a partnership agreement with somebody else, another community organization or another group, then you need to be thinking about that. Now, one of the questions that came up first was, how do you constitute yourself to be a community organization? Community organization is not for profit. So if you're not for profit, if you are worked on your basis, on your tax, and on your constitution, you're not a private individual receiving a profit, then that's a community organization. So you're not a non-profit making, and that's how you are identified. Correct with yourself, Niall, and Johnny, if you want to stay on unmuted so you can jump in if at any time.
Tricia, just on that, where I was going to come back in maybe was a bit about the kind of those background supports that the wheel can offer. Exactly. So I've already identified the communicating those leader projects and what's happened and the case and so on. But actually, the background for any non-profit applying for leader funding, like you identified clearly in the application form, where they want to know, are you going to get this money and use it properly, and are you properly set trained up and so on. So a very practical thing on that is, and even useful if you are already an organization but just want to check, we've a good guide on forming your non-profit. So it talks about your legal status, it talks about what kind of practical steps you need to do. So if you're an individual but thinking, we could, actually this non-profit organization applying for funding or whatever, it'll outline the kind of steps you need to take in order to be a non-profit. So that's in the first place. And you'll find that on the Wheel website, wheel.ie. The second thing to say is that, we are a membership organization, but we run training and events for both members and the wider sector. And some of those we do charge for, but many others are free. And there's a range of supports available around training, around, for example, managing your finances, managing risk, communications and marketing, governance, and all of these types of trainings. Many of you here on the call today will have attended those. And when you're putting in what skills do we have, or what do we have, it's important to recognize that. But do use the wheel as a resource to, and also talk to your the local development company or leader partnership, because they too will be able to identify either have a look at maybe a chat about the training you've already done that's relevant, but also maybe the training that you might need to access that will support your application. So I would recommend that in the first place. You can find all the information about the supports on our website, wheel.ie. The other thing is, for those who are members, and this is for members of the Wheel, and remember, if your organization currently has an income of less than 25,000, it's free to join the Wheel, is that we have webinar channels. So the webinars we run webinars, which are kind of 50-minute to an hour every Friday morning, really informative, practical around many of those areas. And but we have a webinar channel where you can access all of the webinars that have taken place to date. So I would recommend having a look at those, and there's really practical, useful webinars that will help you in your as you go through the process of applying for leader funding. We also have, I mean, Emily here, who welcomed us all here today, as part of our Access Europe team, which supports organizations applying for EU funding, and they run a range of training, they provide a newsletter and so on. So you can join Access Europe and get that broader support as well. And particularly useful to know, like, well, actually, is Leader the right funding for me? Because in fact, was there another funding I could apply, EU funding I could apply for, or other funding I could apply for? And, you know, so to be aware of that as well. So again, you can contact the Access Europe team at europe@wheel.ie. So
also on a local level, don't forget your PPN. They will all be within all your county councils, who are very active in getting information out there to the communities. And know myself, I've delivered webinars even on behalf of PPNs as well about being grant ready. One thing you were talking there about training and capacity, and I'm sure Niall, you as a development officer going out when you're doing your appraisals, like I sat on a lag, so I was one of the lag members who then, you know, would have been judging an application, and that would have been one of the top questions I would have always asked: are they able to manage this? Because the worst case scenario for any funding organization is to allocate you money and you can't spend it. It is the worst case scenario, because you have taken money in effect from another project. So always think that, you know, applying for funding is great, and, you know, getting funding allocations is great, but are you really going to make, you know, spend this money? And that is what this question is about. It's about making sure you can spend it and you can meet the objectives that you have set. So also when I'm talking about timeline, be realistic. So that's just some of my sort of right, some of the questions here, right? Define a community group, legal basis of holding land to be eligible for ownership. Lease and title would usually, for other funders, it's 15. Leader is minimum of 5, but do you all have a recommend? It's in it 5 from when your funding is finished or when it started?
Correct, Patricia. So 5 from your final claim. So you need 5 years from your final claim. So if you're putting your lease in place at the time of application, you know, 7 to 10 is probably more realistic, and it might take 2 years to get through an application process.
Exactly.
Just in terms of your previous point, you were talking. So someone asked about defining a community group for purposes of large scale project. Just, you know, most community groups delivering large infrastructure or managing facilities would be a company limited by guarantee, which provides some legal protection. Yeah. Again, one of the things I'm not is a solicitor or an engineer or a QS, or many more things I'm not, but, you know, it can provide that level of protection.
And it's one of the things that I would never even go into in terms of tax and company setups. You need to go and get somebody who is well qualified in that area. Transitional program available for large scale infrastructure. I know the funding levels are a lot smaller, purely because it's transitional program. Is that what you're finding, Niall?
Certainly in Cork. Don't get me started on the funding allocation for Cork, but, you know, generally, you know, local development companies or LAGs may have larger budgets. It depends. Defining large scale projects might be 500,000 plus, you know, depending. I'm not sure what the scale people are talking about. I don't see many of those in the transitional program, but there isn't anything written into the program to say, you know, you can't go to the max of 200,000 or flagship. But, you know, it is, I suppose, about preparation, but it depends on the local context, and you need to engage and find out what budgets are available. Are they split across themes? You know, there could be those constraints on it.
I know myself, even just with working with different leader projects, up in Donegal, they're still working on the 150 basis, but other ones are only working on 30 as a maximum grant basis. So as Niall says, you need to contact your local LAG and find out exactly what is available, because I know their allocation was a lot bigger than everybody else's. So that's probably why. The Leader Food Initiative is different from the Transitional Fund. Food is not funded through the Leader program that we're talking about.
Yes, there is a leader food initiative. So there was 15 million allocated separately to the leader program. So it is separate to leader and it is separate to the transitional program. It is there to support, broadly speaking, the development of artisan products or capital that you would require to develop those products. And they released the next 5 million under that recently. So, it's the same process. Broadly speaking, there are a few different stages and a few different bits and pieces that you have to comply with, but, it's running parallel to it. That's it.
And I know a lot of it's to do with the Brexit fallout as well. They were really pushing for, in terms of food. It's not something that we would have had much experience of it. Brady, I'm not really understanding this question of period of payback after the project completed. Do you want to give us a bit more information?
Yeah, that was if you're funding the project up front, how long, if you get a bank loan to do your project.
Your claim.
Yeah, your claim, that's the word. How long do you have to wait to get the money back? Because you're going to have to take out a loan probably to do the project.
It depends, Brady. So it depends on the local context as much as anything. It can take time, and you do need robust finances. It depends on the type of project. So if it's a feasibility study, it's 20,000. You're probably delivering that in one phase, and you're not looking at phase payments. For a large capital project, you can claim up to 5 times, and the first claim after a minimum spend of 20%. So you could be, say you made a claim, you could be waiting up to 3 months, let's be honest. But you can use phase payments, I think, to try and mitigate that, the time you're holding the loan. And then bridging finance, I suppose, is important. So, there are the likes of Social Finance Ireland and Clan Credo who do offer loans to community and voluntary organisations.
Can I also jump in there and say, like, from somebody who's delivered as well, just my experience of this, your claim back period can be very much down to how you approach this as well. If you have your procurement documents all in place perfectly, you can follow every line of the guidelines. So don't be thinking that will do. Make sure you go above and beyond with every bit of paperwork that you are requested. Then it makes it easier for your verification of your claim. So you want to make life as easy as possible as the person who is going through your claim form. So if you have everything in date order, every invoice and every bank statement matches a payment, and you can show the perfect matches of those. If you can show this, I'm talking larger scale. Also, if you can show in terms of your procurement is a huge one that always seems to be a stumbling block, because now I don't know about yourself, but I know like emails would have gone missing on where you've asked for a tender or tenders coming in, and that seems to be like just holds everything up because you can't show an email of that backs up that tender arriving at your desk.
Yeah, okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
You know what I mean? So simple things like setting up a folder, and every time you send something to do with that tender, it goes into that folder, and you've got a date line and timeline, and make it as easy as possible for your verification.
Okay, thank you.
And that comes down to being ready, being having your procurement in place, having your finances in place, having your filing in place. Now, if you're a small scheme and you're only going for one contractor or one invoice, like a piece of training or a feasibility study, yes, you're only dealing with one contractor, so it's one bill. And that will make life a lot easier. On a capital scheme, and I don't know if this is how everybody else would approach it, but I would have seen an awful lot would have been better off getting one contractor who could do all of the work. So you're not having to go and get quotes for joinery, electrician, plumbing, building. You get one contractor and you do your full contract awarding on that basis. So in terms of capital, I would always say bring in one contractor. I don't know if that goes against your advice, Niall, or
again, look, it depends on the local context. Hopefully someone is looking at procurement and making
No, they're making it worse.
Hopefully someone will make it better. Let's be positive and think that, you know, coming out of this program, you know, the department will take time to review people's feedback and say, well, you know, procurement needs to change and it needs to become more flexible. It takes little account of local goodwill. So, you know, it really depends on, but it will make your life easier to have one contractor. Absolutely. You know, having multiple contractors and managing invoices, receipts, tax compliance, reporting for all of those is more complicated, but you know, we have seen it, and we will help you if you want to do it.
And can I say, and I said it from the very first day, I think this is a fantastic project. In terms of leader funding, I've watched it and I've been in projects all across Europe and I've worked in it for years. It scares me to say nearly 30 years because I remember being involved when our local authority applied for our first leader funding. So it scares me that I've been working that long, but it is a fantastic scheme. It has delivered so much across so many different sectors in the rural economy and rural community that I think it's worth your while just getting yourself ready and getting your group ready and using maybe this transitional funding to fund a smaller scheme and get used to the process. There was a question about public procurement there. Yeah, there's operating guidelines which are available. I have sort of shown snaps of them in the application, but I'm sure we can send that out, Emily, or send a link for that after this. That's no problem. And there is, do public procurement policies have to be followed? Yeah, to the letter, and it has to be advertised at an EU level above a funding. Is it above 150?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know.
Hold on, just look at it here now. I've got it here.
Is it over 5 million and 2 million for
just I have
services
open here? So just procurement. I did keep my operation guidelines beside me here just in case. And of course, it'll just take forever to get that.
Anyway, but while you're waiting, so broadly speaking, anything, you know, supplies and services above 25,000 ex-VAT need to be advertised on e-tenders. Works above 50,000 need to be advertised on e-tenders, and below that, then you need to follow specific procurement guidelines again. So sending it out to the relevant number, be that 3 or 5, including a specification, including your award criteria, be that lowest value or meet, and following the process right through to a score sheet, a tender report, and letters of successful and unsuccessful. Then if you're on e-tenders, you're looking at the public works contract documents, and your development officer will tell you exactly what those are depending on your scale of project.
Okay, so we have less than 50,000 is if you're going for capital, less than 50,000, you need written quotations from 5 firms. Above 50,000, it has to go on to e-tenders. 50,000 to $250,000 on e-tenders, and it's an open procedure. Anything above $250,000 has to go on to the EU portal. So it's over $250,000. Apart from anything above 25,000 will go on e-tenders. So it's got to do with your whether it's a service or a capital. Okay. Liam Shorthall, you're asking a Northern Ireland question. Yeah, they're missing out. Everybody is trying to think how I can non-politically answer this.
Careful now. I'm only just wondering because to see how. I'd be interested to see how it's happening on the ground.
Yes.
In a real sense, what is
in a real sense
that funding stream is just,
yes.
and is the slack going to be picked up, from where?
Well, we're told we are. There's very much yes, the money will be there. for some reason there seems to be a belief there is a bottomless pit somewhere. We still haven't found out where that pit is, but we're waiting to find out. And yeah, we're very reliant on the protocol being arranged. We are not in receipt of any EU funding, even though we're part of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The Northern Ireland Protocol is only about the trading of goods. So we're in a community groups here are in a very precarious situation and are kind of not knowing what's happening.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
The lags are still there, and the lags are there for another 2 years, I think it is.
Okay. Just wondering. Thanks very much.
Yeah. That's why I stick to webinars to the south.
Fair enough.
Is there anything else? Anybody else? Is anybody attempting an application at the moment? That's not very positive.
The silence is deafening there.
That is worrying. Come on.
I'm trying to unmute. Yes, we are planning to make an application.
Excellent. And how are you getting on?
Well, we've already done a feasibility study with LEADER, so we have quite advanced in that way. We've got an initial feasibility. That's why I was asking the question about large infrastructure, because really we don't want to do another feasibility study.
No.
So really the next stage is to actually apply. However, there's one specific thing about the project. It's if we did everything proposed, it would be a very large project. So we were planning to just apply for core stage repairs, as it were. So we would do the core repairs to get the building and the grounds usable and used, rather than applying for the whole.
Yeah, before in webinar 1, it's about you looking at this as your strategic. What's short, medium, and long term?
Yeah.
Johnny, Niall, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd see lots of phased projects. You know, I don't know the detail of it. It sounds like to some extent a refurb with bigger things to come. But yeah, absolutely. You know, take chunks off it. You know, because this transitional program probably won't deliver a lot of large scale projects. So you need to identify your own resources. Is it a project less than 50,000 expat? Are you going to seek quotes for it? Are you going to implement it on that level, or are you going to go to e-tenders? So you just need to, you know, identify your own resources and then talk to your local development company and see what's possible.
Can I ask where you're based?
West Cork.
There you go.
Yeah. The proposal, just to go a little bit further, it's a fairly big facility, but the focus of the facility is environmental. Really, we want it to be a centre for climate action excellence, as it were, for demonstration, training, visiting, and so on. But we see it as a sort of environmental tourism centre, as a facility for the community and for tourism. Does that sound within the strategic program? Does that sound like something that LEADER would support?
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like it ticks an awful lot of boxes in my view.
In the right direction there, Jose.
Right, good. Well, we're on the right track then.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's also about retrofit and about teaching people new methods of construction so that they can go towards zero carbon buildings. We're working with Jose on this.
Fabulous.
Super, sounds brilliant. Yeah.
Sounds excellent.
And
I wouldn't say it's
tried to apply for one in Leitrim, but we missed the deadline for expressions of interest, and we asked them would they consider accepting it, because it was just a few days late. I only logged onto the website after I'd seen the date, but they've said we can just make a normal application, so we're in the process of doing that at the moment.
Yeah, a lot of them do rolling programs. So get your expression of interest in, and at least it's like that you have expressed that you want to be involved in this program.
Yeah.
So funding, you're on their radar.
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there are a lot of time limited calls, but you know, there is no limit on expression of interest. So
definitely not.
If you have one, get it into your local development company.
Just on that point, could I ask what the deadlines are? We've not really had any notice of any deadlines for expressions of interest or anything like that down here.
See, I don't know exactly where you are, Jose. I'm not, I am in Cork, but we don't deliver across all of West Cork. So
Yeah.
again, talk to your implementing partner in this case.
CCAD.
Yeah, pick up the phone and ring CCAD and see. I'm not aware that they're currently implementing any time limited calls, but I would check that out.
Okay.
Jose,
Some
and
aren't.
see.
And that's just one thing. As Niall has said, contact your local company, because some are not putting in any deadlines. They're just opening an open call and judging applications as they come in. Some are.
Okay, that's very useful. Thank you.
One there, Don Luche from Strawberry Development Association. Are there any tips you might be able to share for a subcommittee we have established to assist with the development of a community centre?
Any tips? Subcommittees are a fantastic start. Is it a new community centre, or is it? Maybe you want to come in and give us a bit more information.
Yeah, yes, Niall, it is. It is. Sorry, my screen is just dropped there. It is, Niall. We're only just after undertaking a feasibility study. Another Cork man, Sean Crowley of Sale Consultancy, living in Tipperary. And, that looks at an awful lot of areas. And one of the better things I suppose we have agreed and brought the community with us on is allocating, redirecting the allocation of the tickets which we get for the electric picnic. We have a resident association here, so we've redirected that, and you're talking just short of 30k, I suppose, to assist the concept there. So Sean unfortunately was unable to attend, I think, one of the capital I'm using my terminology. I think it was the sports capital funding briefing, and I attended at short notice. So I have shared those insights, all right. And I know there's a cohort of those avenues, strands, outlets, and I suppose they are predominantly at the outset. We have a core of 3 on the subcommittee, Niall, and look from your and the colleagues you've mentioned there earlier that have undertaken a similar initiative, anything like that to kind of assist their journey.
And don't, I suppose it's all relative. Do you have a site in mind? Is it a
we do. We have. It's actually on council grounds, Niall. It's at the back of the here in Stradbally, and this has been up to the department. They have approved it in conjunction with, I think, deliverance of 26 odd housing. There's an apportionment of that which has a site for the advancing of a community centre. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I suppose then you're relatively early in the process. So identifying a lease. So the local authority, if the community group want to lead this and access leader funding, you at a minimum take a lease on the land. You have to go for your planning permission. You have to be looking at funding, and I'm glad to see that there's some funding coming from Electric Picnic. But then sports capital. We've seen sports capital used in conjunction with Leader for community centres. We've seen local authority funding. Is there any philanthropy? I'm not sure where you're located. You're probably looking at the next Leader programme. Let's be realistic. I may be wrong. Maybe you can turn this around much quicker. But get everything in a row. Get all your legal requirements, and everything will, in my view, fall into place. But you're going to have to be aware that you're going to have to go to public procurement, and that's a fairly large-scale capital project. So you are going to need to spend some money on that. That money can't be recouped as it's prior. So if you have had a feasibility study, if there's another feasibility study that can take you a step further, maybe that's worth considering. So, I think you are heading in the right direction, but, engage with your local development company now, and identify the project. Maybe it's for the future, but like I say, some of the projects we will deliver in the next Leader programme have been identified 5 years ago or 6 years ago.
Very good. Thanks, Niall. Thanks. We just a final point on that. We did avail of an architect in the process, Niall, and that has assisted. Yes. So,
and do you have, Donald? Do you have documents that will be robust enough for planning permission and tendering? So, if I would advise anyone to exit that process with clear drawings that will allow you to go to planning permission, but there are more detailed drawings required for procurement. And that's down to electric supplies, it's down to ventilation, it's down to foundations, finishes. So, really, out of those feasibility studies, you need to be positioning yourself both for planning permission and for public procurement, and that might be a very detailed bill of quantities as well. And the key thing about that, and hopefully, you know, the construction won't be so hot when you get to it. Things are gone out of control at the moment, but if you don't have a really clear and good spec, you will run into problems. So leader, hopefully you get leader funding, you get a letter of offer, you will get hopefully 75%, you know, to a maximum of, and that maximum of will never increase. So if you run through a period of, you know, cost inflation, costs have gone up 30%, leader is not going to come in on that. If you have missed something in your procurement and there are extras coming out your ears, then, you know, you're into trouble there. So, you know, really tight specification on those large scale projects is key.
Very good. Thanks, Niall. Many thanks.
And just on that, to remind that, like, there are case studies of where community development associations or communities have organizations have developed community centres. So again, have a look at those case studies of the ones that have existing, and it may well be that they've identified lessons that would help your development association, Donald, as well.
Thanks a lot, Johnny. Appreciate
it. Using a lease as your match funding, my gut is no. Niall?
There are ways of doing it.
If it's given to you for free.
There are ways of applying a valuation to donated land and a donated lease. Again, we have never done it, but it is possible.
Yeah.
It is. It's also, I know with volunteer time, it can be very, very difficult. You're allowed to, but it can be very, very difficult to quantify.
It can, with volunteer time, you need to be really aware of your liabilities in terms of insurance. And, you know, it doesn't always work.
No. Can I also say, a colleague of mine quite recently, for use at the very stage of developing projects, Emily, I don't know if you have the link to it, but a colleague of mine, Neve, did the strategic planning webinar, I think last Wednesday, for the Wales. So there's a lot of sort of tips on that, on developing a strategic plan in-house.
Very good. Thanks, Richard.
Listen, thank you very much, Niall and Johnny, for joining me here today, and Emily for organising all of this. We will send out the recording, and again, we'll send out the PowerPoint and any links, and also the list. We sent that out the last time, the list of the lags.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Well, and also we'll send you the link. We'll send it again, and we'll send you the link as well, because that list had their numbers and their emails and all on it as well, and a link to that the map as well, so you know who is actually the person for your area. And all I can do is try to encourage you. I think it is a fantastic funding program. It can be intimidating, but it shouldn't be if you approach it right and plan for it. And as I said from day one, just to be proactive on this and to get all your ducks in a row and be ready. So as long as you know what you're coming up against, you'll be fine, absolutely fine. And it can deliver such fantastic projects locally. And thank you very much. Thank you, Niall. Thank you, Johnny. It's great to have some backup here today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, all.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Many thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Johnny. Hi, Niall.
Marianne, how are things? You well?
Marianne, good. I don't know if you met Emily before.
Nope.
Nope.
Nice to virtually meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So Marianne was also one of our local reps, but she's now the leader coordinator in Monaghan Integration Development.
Okay.
So these little webinars gave me a good time just to get my head around leader again. Some of the new stuff and the questions people were asking. It's interesting to see what the questions are from the groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Patricia's gone, is she? Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you, Niall? How are you getting on?
I'm good. Yeah, we're still fighting the good fight.
Yes, leader. I know. Yeah. Have you had your first lot of projects through, or?
We've had one project go through, one reasonably big project, but we're September, October will will wipe out what we had. I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We have our first 6 through.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
And are they mostly, Marianne, are they mostly that kind of feasibility type, or are there some bigger ones?
There's one bigger one, but the evaluation committee didn't like it. It was a tourism project. So it's going to the lag, and we'll see if they want to rescore it or not. We'll have to see. Then there was 2 feasibility studies. And 2 smaller broadband projects, so and another tourism self-catering as well. But there's a mix of projects. There's a few we just advertised there for the food, when the food initiative was launched. We advertised, so we have a few food projects coming in, and actually one of the popular ones, I think we have 3 of them in, is milk pasteurization on the farm, and then milk vending machines seem to be a big thing. So there's a few projects coming along. Yeah.
Listen, I don't know. There's still a fair few people on the thing, and I don't know, were people hanging on because they wanted to ask a question? Any of the people who are still on?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I'm going to do is end this meeting, and thank you guys very much for your contributions. I hope that you found it okay.
Super. Yeah. No, really good. Thanks.
Thank you, and thanks, Niall,
see you, Marianne. Thanks,
for that, and good to see
See
you,
you, Niall.
Marianne.
See you, Johnny.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Take
Thank
care.
you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.